Hey guys. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this conversation. I am bringing in Dr. Anna Cabeca. I'll invite her in just a minute. This month's Book Nook author. She is an OBGYN that takes a functional, holistic approach to hormones. So this is for any woman who, wherever you are in your cycling journey, if you maybe don't feel quite like yourself, if you feel like your hormones are kind of all over the place and you just want a better understanding of what's going on, the goal is for you to leave here empowered. You guys can ask some questions. And Dr. Anna Cabeca is actually going to be coming on the podcast later this month. So definitely be sure that you are tapped into all those resources. Let me invite her in. Oh, you guys drop your questions below. I would also love to know, give me like a heart if you're currently in the book nook. Here she comes. Hello,
Hey.
Dr. Cabeca. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. I know, like, typically busy women and everyone listening can relate to this. We've got a massive time crunch. So we are going to hit it and we're going to deliver so much value to these women. And I want to make sure, this Dr. Cabeca is an incredible resource for you guys. She has graciously come on as the author of this month's book in Book Nook. This is a free resource. You grab her book, you get the expert here to help support us. Like, this is the goal of this whole resource, is to help you guys connect back to yourself. So we've got half hour together. I'm going to pick your brain. I'm so excited for these ladies to get to meet you.
Well, I'm so excited too. And I love what you're doing. And I love book clubs, by the way.
Right? It's like, I feel like when we have a book in our hand, like a good book, it just reminds you to slow down during the day, right? It's like that. I call it an anchor.
And I like a physical book because it's like something about turning the pages, right?
Or
Something about turning the
highlighting
pages.
them,
Totally.
taking your notes in them, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think I can even read without a pen in my hand anymore. I mean, seriously.
Those are good books. And, I'm writing a book right now and I've written all over your book. I pray that my book is one that people highlight and like dog ear. And I think that's so important. It's a sign of a good book.
Yeah, I know it will be because you're so in touch. You're in touch with your audience, what they need, and the questions they ask, and I can tell by what you sent me is like you're here to serve them. So
Yeah,
we're
for
in
sure.
good company.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for saying that. Well, I want to start off, I know we've gotten to spend some time together, but I want the women watching and listening to love what I love, to see in you what I see in you. And what I see is a woman who came from traditional medical training, had a story. And if we can even just spend like a couple minutes, because people will get to know you on a deeper level in the podcast later this month. But, when someone has a personal story, I think that creates a fire and a drive in them that, like, we will go to the ends of the earth to get the answers that we didn't have. And we stand on our platforms and we're like, here, let me make it easy for all of you who are maybe experiencing something that I experienced. So I want people to understand kind of where you're coming from. You trained in traditional medical school, right? And then at some point you pivoted into this functional medicine space. So what was that trajectory for you?
Yeah, no, it was really, we say there's a saying that I love. It's like your mess becomes your
Mm-hmm.
message. And I think a lot of us doctors that find ourselves in the integrative medical space, the functional medical space, had problems that modern medicine, conventional medicine wasn't solving for us. And that's certainly true in my case. So when I was 39, I was diagnosed with infertility, went through 6 rounds of fertility treatments as an OBGYN, knowing everything I knew. This is in 2006. And then being diagnosed with early menopause. And so at 39 years old, early menopause. And as a medical provider, we're like, okay, we get that diagnosis. There's no reversing it. At 30, there's no chance of reversing it. I never even crossed my, concepts, possibility. But as I broke down after that, I was traumatized and it was grief after grief, failing every cycle of failed pregnancy attempt. I mean, that's grief morning after morning. I mean, people don't, I mean, I think we underestimate, underrepresent the impact on our soul to infertility and the impact of miscarriages, etc., on our souls. But for me, it was definitely grieving after grieving. And I took a sabbatical from my practice and traveled around the world. Travel has always been my meditation, my medicine. And as I met different healers and experienced different medicinal foods and traditional philosophies, within 3 years, I reversed, with the grace of God, reversed natural menopause, reversed my menopause diagnosis, and naturally conceived at 41 years old the child I was told I would never be able to have. So when I came back into practice, I was like, okay, there were all these things that, that we have to shift. Our body is so powerful, given the right nutrients in the right environment, in the right amounts, with the right, grateful mindset, your body is empowered to heal. And so I was on fire when I came back into practice to do this for my clients and to help them empower their body. And so, like, I filled my doctor's bag with all kinds of unconventional things that, your doctors may feel like, okay, well, we don't know anything about this. So what's the research on this? That's why I wrote The Hormone Fix. So it's been part of my journey. It takes more than hormones to fix your hormones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So good. And I'm thinking about all the women. I mean, I've definitely experienced this. I don't know how many women listening like give a thumbs up or a heart or whatever, but how many times have we walked into doctors' offices and explained how we're feeling or our symptoms? And it's like we're looked at like we're crazy. We're told it's just a natural result of aging. Like we're just supposed to accept this as our fate, right? Like it sounds like you were told you just had to accept infertility and accept early menopause. Like it just was
And
what
take a
it was.
Xanax. Don't forget, I was told to take a
You must
Xanax.
be depressed, clearly. Like
Totally.
having no result of the environment that you're living in, right? Like let's just give the pill. So, you know, again, I'm so excited to bring you on as this month's author because these are the conversations that we need to be having.
Yeah.
I want to continue to remind women that we are powerful.
Yes.
And it's not,
Yes.
it doesn't need to be this outside in approach. It's getting us back to our own rhythm and tapping back into our own magic and wisdom. This isn't an addition, it's a subtraction. It's getting rid of all the shit we've accumulated that's pulled us away from our innate health and wisdom. And I know you align with that. And I'm like so lit up about this conversation, about this
Oh my
month.
gosh. Yeah, I love it. And then it's like it's often doing less and not more, and it's shifting to the present moment. So we're not, we don't have any regrets, fears, angst about the past or fear about the future, right? It's being in that present moment, being in our body in this present moment with a sense of positivity and gratitude, and so we can have fun and pleasure. I mean, our bodies are designed for pleasure, but sometimes it doesn't feel that way. It feels like they're betraying us. And so the things that incorporate this actual healing and being able to rejuvenate, our body constantly wants to rejuvenate, right?
Yeah.
So we want to give it the right environment to rejuvenate in. So it is removing things that, the toxic cosmetics and chemicals. I choose my toxins, I must have to say.
We all do. We all do.
I choose, yeah. And so it's that process of focusing on what helps us restore and rejuvenate. And it makes all the difference. It really does.
Yeah, it really does. And I think, one of the things I love about you is your very realistic approach. And I think you just nailed it with what you just said. Like, we choose our toxins, and anyone, at least probably who's following me, like, if anyone who's following any of us, like, don't throw stones from a glass house, right? Like,
Totally.
none of us are doing this 100% toxin free. And I think it's about choosing and picking the few things that we want to maintain in our life. I'm saying all this to say, like, a woman reading your book is not going to feel overwhelmed. That all of a sudden now, okay, now not only am I dealing with my crazy, insane life, but now I've got to get rid of all my pots and pans, all the plastic, all the blah, blah, blah. Like, absolutely, you talk about those tools, but what I love is you take a very realistic approach, right? So, in regards to that, like, what is maybe the one, let's talk about internal first, because I like the internal conversation, and we'll talk about some of the external. But as far as internal tools, what is maybe the most important shift from the inside out that a woman can take in order to help regulate the chaos of perimenopause or her fluctuating hormones?
And I think this is the biggest thing. Like I always talk about in the hierarchy of hormones, right? And within our body is the best pharmacy in the world. So we have the ability to make intentionally more of our hormones to a degree, right? So, and especially the hormone to regulate, like when I talk about regulator hormones, I refer to insulin and cortisol. Cortisol being our stress hormone and insulin being our fat storage hormone. Okay, we want that to be very insulin sensitive. We don't want high numbers, especially as we get to midlife, because insulin and cortisol are both increasing while all our reproductive hormones are taking a nosedive. So managing these hormones is really key. And to manage cortisol, instead of all these stress management things, I talk about oxytocin increasing behavior. So oxyplay, what brings you pleasure, what makes you laugh, have your sense of humor. How can you laugh at this? What are you grateful for? So from an internal perspective, and this sounds like soft science, I'm telling you, there is hard science to this. This is quantum energy, quantum physics. When we think of energy medicine, this is the medicine of the future. So this empowerment piece is really key. So for myself, having experienced the depths of despair, post-traumatic stress disorder, severe depression, and realizing how acidic my body was, and then noting when I did my prayer, my meditation, my gratitude journaling, my walks on the beach, my urine pH, and I use that as an important biomarker, my urine pH was more alkaline, and oxytocin is alkalinizing, cortisol is acidifying. And for our general physiology and looking at bladder pH as a biomarker, we want to be alkaline. And alkaline urine pH is associated with less cardiovascular disease, less cancer, less bone loss, so many good things. And it helps us, that gives us feedback. How well are we doing? How well are we monitoring our nutrition and our environment and decreasing environmental toxins? And most importantly, how are we managing stress, or how are we incorporating pleasure, fun, play, humor into our life? And if we focus more on that, that's game changing. That works.
Yeah, I love that. So I know in part of your book, I'm still in the first section here, you're already getting into measurement tools, which I think is really important because what we measure, we manage. I think you said that in there, right? And so what I'm hearing from what you just said is we've got this ability to measure our urine pH. We know that cortisol has a certain effect on our pH. And so we can measure, and then we can create these opportunities for play that are going to change the game. They're going to move the needle, and that's going to help us balance our hormones.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think, I supplement and all that stuff too. And we think of the research in red wine. And now we're like, okay, no amount. First, everyone drink a glass of red wine a day. And then no amount of red wine is good for anyone, no amount of alcohol. But the thing is, always look at that research. Was it the glass of red wine at our, Italians tables or the Mediterranean tables that decreased heart disease? Or was it the community, the laughter, the fun, the conversations at the table that increases oxytocin, which improves the heart and risk of cardiovascular disease? So like we think about that, let's just go to oxytocin. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. So, people listening, I mean, do you see why I love this woman? So, in this book, she's talking about all the science, all the research, all the jargon, right? Like, clearly, cortisol and insulin are something we really need to put our lens on as far as watching our hormones. And then you're also talking about just, it's so lighthearted in like the day and age where I think we're just all juggling so much that it's like, okay, now I have this information. How can I make changes? And it's play and it's community and conversation and humor and like, all the things we just need a reason to create more space for in our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it.
100%. And like that's a priority. Even before I open my eyes in the morning, I think, what am I grateful for? Where do I have love in my life? Where do I see love, feel love, show love?
Mm-hmm.
And where could I laugh? Where could I laugh more or laugh at myself like from the day before? Where can I bring in humor? And that just those three questions, gratitude, love, and laughter, all increase oxytocin. It sets my physiology off in a low inflammatory state to start the day.
Yeah.
And it just makes a difference because when you start the day stressed, and I talk about this in the hormone fix, but that increases cortisol, and cortisol increases your blood sugar. And that constant physiologic state of, high cortisol, going to high glucose creates that insulin resistant, creates this under the surface disease process that's happening unless we're able to reverse it. And once we're aware of it, Like the eyes don't see what the mind don't know, but once your mind knows it, you're like, you see it everywhere. Like, aha, okay,
Yeah.
I can redirect. I can redirect.
Yeah, it's so powerful. So I'm really curious, can you walk us through, like, I know you have very busy days, as do probably many of the women listening to this. So you put your lens on, like, where can I find humor and play? And there's those what I like to call macro or big opportunities, right? Where maybe we can go to the beach, or like we just had a vacation, right? Those are amazing. But
Yes.
then what about in the day to day where there's like no time? Like,
Oh my gosh.
how are you finding space for play and humor?
We talk about, like, first of all, with my program, we do intermittent fasting and no more snacking, but we talk about exercise snacking instead, but like play snacks. Can you do some play snacks? Like if you're like to combine even just to get outside and look at your flowers, or to, have this obsession right now with my, like, this handstand, shoulder stand thing that I have. And being upside down inversion is supposed to decrease fine lines and wrinkles, but it also increases oxytocin. So I'm totally like, when I start my day in the morning, I'm like, okay, get a minute handstand or headstand or shoulder stand, whatever it is. Get a minute inversion in, get that blood flow to the brain, all that good stuff. And it's just play to me. Doing a handstand is playful. So what do you enjoy? Playing with your pet, making a play break. Playing with your partner. Do you have time to make a hug and cuddle intimate moment during your day? I mean, that is game changing for your physiology. That is game changing for your relationship too. So can you incorporate play snacks in your day?
Yeah, I love it. And I think this is so important. And I love that you said, there is hard science behind this. Like, it is super powerful. And, I think a lot of us women lose ourselves. I think we lose ourselves in our career, we lose ourselves in our family, and we lose ourselves in our fluctuating hormones.
Yeah,
And I think one of the most important things that we can do, and I'm so glad we're talking about this, is get back to ourselves. And I think a big piece of where we find ourselves again is in play. And it's creating that space, and maybe even just starting to ask that question, like, what is it that I want? What is it that I love? And getting back to what we did when we were a kid is like a really good insight into that. And
totally.
play snacks, I love that. I think I'm going to have to use these play snacks throughout the day.
I think it's game changing when we start thinking that way. We're not doing stress management. Oh my God, I got to get out and walk because it's part of my lowering cortisol process. I'm like, wait, I'm going to get out and play
Yeah.
and increase oxytocin. There's a complete energetic shift to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a complete different. And women have a pleasure deficit.
Uh,
I mean, we are doing for everyone else to make sure they're taken care of at a sacrifice to our pleasure and our enjoyment, and tapping into our joy and our grace and our pleasure, our fun more impacts everyone around us. That's such a strong energy. It's a positivity, it's healing, it's powerful. And so doing that for ourselves really helps. It makes us, I see this in my programs. I have my programs, and clients will tell me, I love being around my family more, but more importantly, they love being around me more.
yeah.
And I love when I hear that, because it's just like you feel healthier, you're lighter, you're funner, you're more of your youthful self, that inner spirit that hasn't aged one day.
Yeah. It is really true. Like, we cannot give to another what we can't give to ourselves. And when we're having fun with ourselves again, we become very magnetic, right? Like, people want to be around us. We have that youthful energy, that youthful glow. It's literally impacting our hormones. So, touch again for a minute, just for anyone who hopped in a little bit late. What does play do for our physiology and biology?
So with play, we increase oxytocin and decrease cortisol. So play improve. So that's with play. With increasing oxytocin, that it supports our immune system. It's anti-inflammatory. It is a bonding, a connection hormone. But very importantly, oxytocin as a hormone is that hormone of attachment and connection. It's also a longevity hormone. In studies done at Berkeley in California, looking at aged muscle, and increasing oxytocin decreased the age of that muscle. And so that was preliminary studies. When we look at the blue zone, the qualities that every blue zone has in common is a practice of faith, is a practice of being in nature, and a practice of good community. All of those increase oxytocin. So.
I love it. And just your intention when you're approaching life from this angle. Like you said, instead of I got to go out and walk and get my however many steps, like I got to get out and play. As I think,
So
and
much
I
better.
ride my bike a lot. Like for anyone who follows me, I do these play snacks in between Zooms. I'm like, I've got 5 minutes, and I go play on my bike, and I sing, and I'm like, I'm the crazy lady. I'm waving my hands, and I don't care. I'm like, hopefully it empowers you to do the same.
Totally. And I think it's a good way of looking at things. And even like, as I say, I get in very serious business, serious client, serious life. I've been a single mom of 4 daughters for over 15 years now. So there's a lot of responsibility, primary breadwinner, all that stuff. So I get it. If, you're coming in, you're like, I have no time for play. Tell me, I promise you, you have to make time for lighthearted play, doing things you enjoy, tap into that. It supports your physiology. And even as I say it, well, gosh, I should play more. Like now I feel like I have to do something else. Wait, just change that, right? Change that concept into, okay, I want to be at home in my body. I want to enjoy myself. And I said to my Magic Menopause group this week, I said, we have to lay down the sword of self criticism and pick up the scepter of self compassion. And it's so true in so many ways because we get critical of ourselves, especially as we age, especially if we feel like we're having symptoms, perimenopause or whatever, and or PMS, and other people aren't.
Yeah.
And like, what's wrong with me? And comparison is the thief of joy. And each one of us has our own individual journey. And I would just say, for those of you who are listening, it's your time. It's your time. You're called to join us in this movement of self-empowerment and healing, and the book club with Melissa on the hormone fix, the cycle.
Yes, I love this. Okay, so for anyone joining, I am going to do rapid fire questions here. But for anyone who's joining in, Dr. Anna Cabeca, who is a wealth of information and just a love, is our April author in this free online community. It's the Book Nook. The only ask, everyone's like, what am I supposed to do? What makes me a good member? Swap 2 minutes a day of scrolling your phone with reading. That's it. That's all I ask. Because that also, I would imagine reading creates oxytocin. I'm going to have to look into the science, but I do know it balances your brain.
Yes, yeah. And chapter 8, or I think it's chapter 8 or chapter 10 in the book, is all about oxytocin. So good
So
one.
good. I think we need to pair like a play challenge with this month. I'm getting some ideas here, like a check off. Did you play today? 5 minutes, 2 minutes, right? I think
I
we need
love
to do
that.
something like that. Boost your oxytocin by playing. Okay, Dr. Cabeca, well, we have you. And for anyone who wants more, she's coming on the podcast later this month. My private community gets to come into that podcast recording and ask their Q&A of Dr. Cabeca. So check your emails for all those resources. All right, I have 5 rapid fire questions
Okay.
for you. One habit that has changed everything for your hormone health.
Habit that's changed everything for my hormone health is really shifting my mind to focus on the positive. When I find myself in fear or negativity or criticism, self or otherwise, like I shift my lens, shift my perspective to, what can I be grateful for? Where is the positive in this situation? And to just continue to do that, because there was that point where I was depressed and even suicidal, and everything looked dark, and this principle in and of itself really saved my life.
Yeah, I could see that. And you haven't shared all of your story. I'm sure we'll talk about that on the podcast, but you definitely have gone through some of most women's worst nightmares, and you've come out on the other side. So you're a testament to these tools. Like I love you. I really do. Okay, what's the one thing women should stop doing immediately? I love this because this is a subtraction. What can we ditch, Dr. Cabeca? What can we get rid of in our life?
Oh my gosh. Again, that self-criticism. Like, how is it when you go to look at yourself in a mirror? Do you look at what you like? Do you compliment yourself? Or do you criticize? And I noticed it a lot in my community groups and patients. And so I was like, okay, no, let's focus on what you like. Your smile, your hair, your skin, your eye. I mean, focus on them before you even go into, believe me, this is a discipline I had to learn too. Before I even look at a mirror, I'm like, okay, looking good. Remember that, right? Like focus on the positive, because there is that expression, and what you focus on
Yeah,
expands, right? So you don't want to focus on my butt too big. I'm not focusing on that. Is my belly too big? I'm not going to focus on that, because what you
yeah.
focus on expands. So focus on really what you love and enjoy. That self-criticism is number one thing that you
We
need
need
to let go of.
to ditch.
Ditch.
I love this. One of my yoga teachers said the cancer of the mind is compare, criticize, Compare, criticize, and complain, right?
Great.
Even if we
That's
just
great.
correct ourselves with those each day. My body part that I love the most in the mirror is right here. And sometimes that's all I got. But I'm like, ooh, look at my
I
shoulder. Looks
love
good.
it. Totally.
You pick
Yes.
that one spot. All right. Most surprising symptom that women could be experiencing that is hormone related that they might not attribute to.
Yeah, I think, the certainly we know the ones like weight gain and hair loss and fine lines and wrinkles and all that. And sometimes we're not realizing incontinence and vaginal dryness. Those are hormonally related.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just, oh, our muscles are getting weaker as we get older. It's the lack of hormones to these muscles around the urethra, around the vagina, that's causing those symptoms. And so this is where we need to add back hormones. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. Someone asked sleep. Sleep. How closely is sleep tied to our
Oh my
hormones?
gosh. When you think about it, and I'm getting ready to do a master class for my perimenopause people, and I'll show you this handwritten slide this handwritten thing that I created. But when we think about hormone of sleep, we think about the hormone
Yeah.
melatonin, right? This hormone melatonin for sleep. But where do we make melatonin from? We make it from tryptophan to serotonin. Serotonin, remember, is your anti-anxiety hormone. Women in perimenopause have anxiety, PMS, and sleep issues. So down here, the reason is we start losing our progesterone, our mid 30s to 45, mid 35 to 55. We lose 75% of our progesterone. And progesterone's needed to keep tryptophan active, and tryptophan's needed to make melatonin for sleep and to make serotonin. So if we work up here with progesterone, tryptophan containing foods, or 5-HTP containing supplements, the combination is game changing to help us produce more melatonin and help us get a good night's sleep versus standard care, sleep medications. And for so many years, I mean, I'd heard patients come in on Benadryl, for instance. Like, we know that can increase your risk of dementia now. No one should be on that for sleep, right? No one. And then on anti-anxiety medications, Prozac, Celexa, Zoloft, all of those medications to help with serotonin, where progesterone helps and estrogen helps. So if we, address the root problem issues, game changing.
Yeah, that's huge. Let's definitely, when we film our podcast, let's like whip out that graph and work
Got it.
through that. And then once
My
the
hand
slide,
drawings.
yeah, I love it. Well, because I think, I love the time of information that we're living in where women are like, I want the info. I want to go into my doctor empowered. Like, I no longer want my doctor to know more about my body than I know about my
Yes,
body. Right?
absolutely. I encourage that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's do that. And then once this live is over, if you can at some point comment with, if women want to learn about your communities, these all sound amazing. Let's make sure they have access to all that
Right.
info. Okay, I know you have a hard end and we're wrapping here. What's one thing every woman should track in your mind? I think it's play. I think we make a play tracker personally.
I do. I love the idea of tracking play, but urine pH, I'm telling you, urine pH, because, and this is what I learned from my own experience in my community. When I start having people check their urine pH, where they'll be like, gosh, I've been eating all these greens. I'm, vegetarian. I eat greens all day and all this stuff. I thought I've been eating great, but my urine pH is so acidic. And, you realize that, how much stress do you have? How much anger do you express? And, this anger, stress, negativity, self-criticism all creates cortisol, and creates this catabolic breakdown. And when we are in higher cortisol, we get more gray and more wrinkles. So just saying.
I love that. And those pH strips are really inexpensive. You can literally get them at like CVS, Walgreens. I'm gonna grab
Yep, you can
some.
get pH paper, just rolled pH hydrogen paper,
Okay.
very inexpensive.
When
Mhm.
do these women pee on it? Is it first thing in the morning?
Any really, like, initially, what I do in my programs, I have them initially check every time you're using the bathroom to the best of your ability.
Okay.
Is just pee on the strip, check, measure. You want to be at neutral 7 or higher 8. 7, 7.5, 8. So that's alkaline. Less than 7 is acidic. Greater than 7 is alkaline. So that's kind of our rule of thumb. And I'd like you to wake up alkaline and go to bed alkaline. So You
Love
know,
that.
I think it's really important. And for moms, our baby, like, you know, when we're pregnant, our baby is swimming in amniotic fluid, which has a pH of like 8.5.
Oh,
It is very alkaline. Life is made in alkaline environment. We build in an alkaline environment. So it's important to check
yeah,
that and then
that's
see.
great.
Then
And
then we know we need more play.
we need more play. Yeah, I was just reading a whole section you do on the pH strip. So I think this is I mean, women are going to walk away with so much tangible, objective data on their own bodies, which is so beautiful. So grab the book, grab some pH strips, and then Dr. Cabeca, I would say, you know, one of my last questions I want to leave you with, and again, women, she's coming on the podcast later this month, so we've got more of this beautiful resource. You know, I think so many women feel like they're doing it all and still feeling subpar. So what would be like the one piece of advice you would give to that woman?
You know, it does feel like, okay, I'm doing all this right. Why aren't I feeling better? And I would just say, you know, I like to say you have to be your own best Nancy Drew. You've got to do your detective work because there's something that's off. So sometimes it's letting go of things that no longer serve us. Sometimes it's changing things in our, you know, nutrition plan. Sometimes it's the intermittent fasting for me, it's key midlife and beyond. 13 to 16 hours between dinner and breakfast. Eat before 7 o'clock at night, preferably 6:30, and that's a very physiologic balance. So I would, you know, I really think it's that piece is to be your own medical detective. Read the book, The Hormone Fix, go through it. You know, I'm like so excited you're doing this as part of your book club because you can see in there so many aha moments. Like, oh, I didn't realize that could be the problem. And you will see when you know, are aware of that and make minor adjustments or releasing things that no longer serve you, what an impact that makes on your health.
Yeah, so huge. I mean, think about any woman who's maybe listening. She's like, this is great. Don't have time to read. Literally, if you read 2 minutes a day or every other day and you learn one thing, like if you walk away from this book and you know how to measure your urine pH and that changes how you're approaching your life and your hormones, that's a win. Thank you. I know you have to run. I think you're getting pulled to your next appointment. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
I look
Okay.
forward to it. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Doc.
Thank you.
Bye.